everybody, welcome to this episode of Coffee with John and the series What Are You Good At that I co-host with Jeff Gunsburg with Title Connect. Jeff, always good to see you, and we're looking forward to talking to Ron Deutsch with Magnus Financial Group. And Ron, looking forward to talking with you. Okay, so let's talk about if somebody were to go to your website, magnusfinancial.com, they're going to see something that is scrolling on your website, securing your family goals, securing your legacy goals, securing, your financial goals. I think that starts with, the biggest question on people's minds today is, in the world that we live in today, how do we even begin to start saving more? So I'd like to start there because I think that's, things are more expensive. So where do we, especially within a business or ourselves, begin to cut expenses to have more to save?
Okay, well, I guess for one thing, I don't, my practice, it's kind of a barbell practice. I have a lot of younger people, entrepreneurs, and then I've got a lot of older people into retirement where their needs are, of both parties, obviously very different. So it really depends, I guess, on which person or group you're addressing. Younger people, quite honestly, I've been shocked, but the clients I have, it's amazing how deep into credit card debt a lot of these people go and are aware of the usurious rates they're paying. So I've done a lot of debt consolidation with a number of my younger people, where we've paid down a lot of credit lines, we paid down credit cards at 25%, and we've been using more kind of margin loans and the like, which right now are only 6.5 to 7.5%. So we're able to save, a huge amount of money just on interest costs alone. And then part two typically is putting together an appropriate budget and figuring out, what coming in the door, where should we be cutting corners here to try to flip you from a spender to more of a saver. And the savings aspect could be putting more money into their IRA accounts. It could be putting more money even into their brokerage accounts, for depending what their need is for liquidity or their risk tolerances, determine kind of how we do that as well. But for younger people, that's been the major concern and the major thing I've seen, which has been a problem. Which you don't learn a lot of this stuff in high school and college. You come out, you step in the real world, and no one taught me either. And I stepped into the business a long time ago, and I learned through the business, quite honestly, but not everybody's as fortunate. And as far as the other side, which are more my baby boomer types who are in their 60s and 70s, they by now have saved up, in some cases, a reasonable amount of money, some cases. But, with the cost of everything and the cost of health insurance, long-term care, all that, people aren't living to be 80 anymore. They're living to be 90, 95 now.
Yeah.
So plan for an additional 10 or 15 years of retirement, i.e., people's concern about whatever wealth they have lasting in their full life is a bigger concern now because they live a lot longer. So on that side also, we sit back, we put together a whole financial plan, and we looked at everything from, car loans, lease or buy, what kind of financing should we do on their property if they need it? Maybe they're all going to go all cash. And then the last part is basically how we set up their investment portfolio to pretty much try to create kind of an ATM cash machine type thing where every month we're getting cash coming off the portfolio, and there's a mix of growth and income, but that mix is going to be determined really by what their spending habits are and spending needs are.
Yeah. So on your site, you talk about, and I think a lot of companies do, where they talk about personalization to your certain circumstance. And I think it's something prudent to talk about for our listeners as to maybe the way you do it and the way that others do it, and how that might lean your way as far as like how you dive in with a client.
So I guess the main thing.
Can I say one thing before you do that? Because one of the quotes I really liked on your website, which I think, to Jeff, your point, echoes, is you say in prosperous times, wealth management seems effortless. The real measure of a financial planner is their ability to safeguard and grow assets during a challenging economy, which is kind of what we're in right? And that was said by Michael Schwartz. So,
Yep.
So I just think, it's easy. I used to be in the commercial real estate space, really easy when the 10-year was at, 3 or under 3. Not an easy business today. So can you just kind of, to Jeff's question and that quote?
Sure. That's Michael's quote, not mine, but I live by the same kind of tendency.
I gave him attribution. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, I've been doing this now. I've been in the advisory business since 2007. So I stepped into it like during the worst possible period during 2008 when the world was kind of blowing up. I guess a couple of things. Number one is we try to manage more for preservation of capital, return of capital and return on capital is number one tenet. And I guess the thing there is that, because of my background, when it comes to fixed income as an example, I generate reasonably high returns on my fixed income because I'm basically creating more yield for people's portfolios, which in bad markets, bond portfolios are supposed to pull their weight vis-a-vis stocks. They're supposed to provide the ballast, whatever you want to call it, to anchor the equity side of it. On the bond side, quite honestly, like 2022, let's give an example. Okay, equities were down 19% for the year, and general fixed income was down about 13 to 14%. Because remember, we went from a 0% rate environment, rates went up to 5% on the 10-year in a matter of like 8 months or something.
Right.
So on the equity side, most of what we do, we are not big technology go growth guys. Okay, we're not looking to hit home runs. We're looking to hit doubles basically in either market basically. So we've used quite a bit of value. I use quite a bit of dividend-paying stocks, which dividend-paying stocks and value stocks typically in poorer markets tend to hold up much better. This year is an example. If you take a look at returns here, you'll see that's been the case. And while you have years like a couple of years ago when equities were up 25 and technology up 40, we will probably lag in a market like that. On the flip side of it, a market like 2022, when things were down 13 to 19%, we were down 5 to 6%. What I've found is that people psychologically feel a lot more pain when they lose a lot of money than the gain they feel when they make a lot of money. In other words, psychologically, people don't like to lose money. So i.e., we really try to protect people's money. On the downside, on the upside, we end up partaking to a great extent to what the market does as well. The other thing we use too are alternative investments, which are non-correlated to a great extent to the markets too. I've been using a number of different managers for quite a number of years now that typically generate high single digits in good markets and bad markets, just to the fact that it's, for instance, secured real estate lending, where we're very low loan to value, high asset backing of the assets as well. So we diversify.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Shoot, I apologize. That was my GPT was on. Sorry about that.
By the way, that happens. You talk and it activates, right? It hears like so that's
yeah. So anyway, so as a result, because of the diversification aspect, when you're getting 8, 9, 10% on your privates, it cushions both the down market and up market, and it kind of stabilizes the whole portfolio. So, a year like this year, I probably captured 89% so far of like the S&P, but I'm not taking S&P type risk just because of the nature of what I have. My fixed income portfolios right now, I had 2 client meetings this morning. We're generating somewhere between 7.5% with treasuries at 4%. That's because, I've got a 25-year fixed income background that I have from my prior career on Wall Street before I did what I did. And as a result, because of my knowledge of fixed income, I can generate a lot more yield because I understand the credit side of the business while taking a much lesser bet on interest rates. The duration of my portfolios is like 2 or 3 years. So it's short duration, high yielding portfolios, which in a flat to slightly up or down market can match equity returns with a lot less risk. I hope that's a long-winded answer, I think, but
no, it was great. It was like a high-level master's class answer. I have a question. So if I'm a listener right now, I'm maybe thinking 2 things. I'm thinking, 1, I have a current wealth advisor what should they be doing that they're maybe not, right? What am I not paying attention to they should? And two, I need a wealth advisor. This all sounds over my head. How do you simplify your first meeting?
I apologize. It's
I say it's like, how do you simplify your first meeting for the person who sits down so it doesn't feel so big and over their head?
First meeting is usually a listening meeting on my part. I ask a few questions and I let them go to town about everything they possibly can tell me about their current life situation, about their family, about their past, about what they really want going forward to live, what their aspirations are, how they want to live their life, their kids. I mean, it's really more, it's usually, for me, it's usually a 2 or 3 meeting process before I even discuss investments, quite honestly. I want to understand where they're coming from. And then meeting 2, based on what they tell me, I'll tell them, here, have you considered this? Here's what I would think might make sense for you guys. And then meeting 3 was we kind of have a discussion, figure out whether there's a match between personality, between myself and them. Obviously, in the end, it's all about trust and competence. And, if you can't garner someone's trust between what you're speaking about and what they need, you're not going to get there anyway.
Sure.
I don't go into the investing part. I'll be honest with you. I've had clients now for 15, 20 years, 18 years. And over time, I try to educate my clients on everything I'm doing for them, even in the nitty gritty, where by a couple of my clients, I joke and I tell them, we have our quarterly meetings, that they're going to get rid of me because they don't need me anymore, because they understand as well as I do how things interact with the portfolio. The key is expectations. Okay. When we eventually set something up for clients, they have to understand how much risk we're taking and what the expectations are. And the key is for me to meet what the risk tolerance is. I don't want to go beyond what their risk tolerance is, because too much risk is the biggest problem people take without knowing it. And many advisors take it for people too. You asked about when I look at other advisors and whatnot. Usually it's concentration of money in certain sectors, non-diversification, non-comprehension maybe of how their bond portfolio might interact with interest rates going up or down. I mean, there's a lot of advisors default to a lot of mutual funds and stuff. I don't use high cost mutual funds. Most of what I do on the fixed income side is individual bond construction. On the equity side, it's low cost ETFs, some blue chip, equity picks, which we will sometimes put in there as well. But we're not gambling with people's money, which I've looked at. I've had some new clients come in lately, or prospects come in lately, and it's kind of unbelievable what some 80-year-old people have in their portfolio that should not have, as an example.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so we're very, very sensitive. I can only speak for myself, but I'm very sensitive and attuned to that. And I do think too, like I said before, the key is the balance between income and growth and what's appropriate for the client. So,
right. So I went through your site and I saw a few things that really kind of pinpointed some thoughts for me. And one of them was having a clearly defined goal. And I think that's a huge thing, because each client is different in what they're trying to do. And I just kind of wanted to get your feedback on, how you get to, I would assume that a lot of people come to you and they really don't know what they want, right? You might have to kind of pull that out of them as to where they might want to go. But having that clearly defined goal is very important as to, do you need cash for, certain things that are sitting there for a certain period of time? Are you, what portion of monies that you have are, up for grabs and you want to take some higher risk with, and, so on and so forth. So, what's that process of drilling down to that clear goal?
Sure. So let me be. By the way, I mistakenly mentioned this. Unlike many advisors and even some of the people in my firm, I have a reasonable size practice. I have kind of limitations on how big I want to get it, because right now I've got about 48 families that I manage money for. I'm kind of getting to the point where there's kind of a limit on how many people want to do it for, because I find you lose that customization. I'm able to customize most people's portfolios. I'll have a general model, but that model gets adjusted for everybody. So nobody's got the exact same portfolio, number one, unlike a lot of other firms where they stick everybody in the growth model. You have 5 models, one model. I don't do that. I have a general model where I've got probably 50 different investments, and out of that 50, depending what the client's needs are, et cetera, is what gets constructed. And depending what they need will determine what the allocation is of each of those. Obviously, on the individual bond side, I build out individual bond portfolios, which are all specific to the client, et cetera. As far as what you asked before in regard to goals and stuff, so as I mentioned before, I'll have probably 2 to 3 meetings. After the second meeting, we'll sit down. I'll have all the individual prospects statements and whatnot, put it through a financial modeling that we do, where we put together basically a 30-year financial plan, which I really look at just the first 5 years. So based on what they have, we come up with, based on the inflows and the outflows, demands, et cetera, we'll come up with basically a retirement analysis / living analysis. And it shows us, based on what they have right now, what their needs are, what we have to get to each year to keep them solvent or keep them cash flow positive. The other thing I was going to say too is that there are other clients at the same time that I may peel off maybe 5% of their portfolio and say, this is going to be your high risk bucket. Let's hit for the fences with this, as long as the rest of the portfolio can cover what we need as well. So, I have a number of clients that we have like venture capital with, but that's in that 5% bucket. We may have some high beta technology stocks in there too, but then we have the general portfolio that we put together more to cover everything that they need within the plan. We do financial planning as well, and the financial plan is usually what ends up driving a lot of what we end up doing for the client. And that'll once the plan comes out, we can adjust it as many times as we want with the client based on things, but that's going to drive eventually how I end up investing for the client. So that's what I'm saying. The investment part doesn't kick into like meeting 3 typically with clients. We have to go through the rest of this stuff first.
Yeah. Great. So I have a question. You worked on Wall Street. You are working with younger people, seasoned people, baby boomers. You made a comment, they don't teach you this stuff in school. What class would you teach, and whether it's middle school, high school, graduate school of any type, what class would you teach, and when would you start teaching it?
I've actually thought at night there's a couple of schools up where I live up here, which I've been thinking next couple of years, maybe teaching night class or something, just on understanding financial literacy. I mean, it's amazing, even kids coming out of college, financial literacy, how poor it is and how low it is. And I mean, I would start everything from just general banking account and checking accounts and building it up from there to alternatives, to stocks, to bonds and whatnot. And I mean, I think my business, I think, is a bit of a Wild West show. It is not regulated enough. There's a lot of guys running around managing people's money that shouldn't be. I mean, it's simple as that. And I think that if you can educate the public a bit more during school or coming out of school, I think they'd be better off for it. They know what to look for when they're going to hire an advisor as well.
Yeah.
Most people don't, and they get, they meet someone on a golf course, says, oh, my God, we bought Meta at 500s at 6. And, you got to be, the world is changing, and, you can't, the days of the 80s brokerage mentality, I don't think are there anymore. It's mind boggling, but people don't, it's hard to know where to turn to. The people who have come to me have been through referrals of my clients. And like I said, I don't rush people. I try to educate them first. And if they're happy with it, they move forward. If they're not, they don't,
Good.
I find value in, it's tough because, you have a lot of young people coming into the business that you're in.
Right.
And usually their clientele are younger people. But, as I start to get older, I have somebody who's, my age doing this. I find myself thinking about, like, how do I implement new strategies and, think about the future. And, a big part of that is, when are they contacting me? Like, I have a certain amount of money that's there, right? I'm not the main priority for them, right? Like, I don't have millions upon millions of dollars sitting there. And I, like what's like the expectation if somebody is dealing with you as to how often they get contacted when, they, at certain levels of, is it based on certain levels of investment? Is it based on just they work with you and they should expect this? Like, I'm curious.
So I run a pretty egalitarian practice. I've got quarterly meetings. In fact, I'm in the middle of them now with everybody. I send an email, mass email with dates available, times available, and every one of my clients gets
to your entire investment group.
My entire investment group, as I just told you, is only 45 families. It's not 100 people, and I don't want to have that. That's not, that is not the practice I strive for. Michael Schwartz in my firm, his practice is twice the size of mine, but he's also got 4 times as many clients. And I could not, I don't know how you can officially do it or how it's fair to the clients to do that also. What I find, quite honestly, I've got clients as small as $750,000, and Michael and I work on a $120 million client, which is the largest client of the firm right now too. So I got it going both ways. And in all honesty, they all get their quarterly meetings. And if the phone rings, they need a hand, I pick it up. I mean, my cell phone, it doesn't matter. In fact, I would tell you that's my smaller clients, like 750. I've got a female hairdresser in California, and she's her own little boutique. And COVID obviously knocked the crap out of her because her business, dried up because nobody was coming to get their hair done.
Yeah.
And I got her through COVID. I got her through what she's got now with what we're doing. And, I mean, I love her. I mean, but she needs me almost more than some of the richer clients do.
Yeah.
She's in Paris because she inherited some money. Her mother passed away. She got some more money. She's now moving to Paris. Now she wants to sit down with me and say, look, I want to get out of the States. I had enough of Trump. I want out of here. I just blah, blah, blah. I'm closing my business down, etc. She's got more money, but she's the same person. And now we're going to do so. I just, as I emphasized at the beginning, I run a boutique practice, and I've got a limit on how many more clients I want to bring in. And by the way, I have plenty of clients who have relatives who have not large amounts of money. I don't say no to them because I can't. So I got a bunch of people who have less money because of that. But, you never know. I got a guy I've got for 12 years with $5 million. He's got a buddy who won the lottery in Vermont 3 years ago, $150 million. And he's been with that guy gave his money to 2 other managers. And now after 3 years, my client called me up and said, look, he's not happy with the performance of these 2 guys. Take a look at it. Yeah. I got a meeting with the guy this Friday. So you never know what comes out of it,
Yeah. So it's great. I love the power of follow-up. All right. We have a 60-second speed round, Ron.
Okay.
Book that's made a big impact.
Well, I'm sorry. I apologize. Repeat that again.
Book that's this is a 60-second speed round for you. What's a book that's made a big impact?
The Malcolm Gladwell book I read years ago, and I can't remember the one that.
He has so many. No, not he's.
It was the second one. It was the second one he wrote. I can't remember the title of it. It shows you it had to make an impact. It had to do with just how timing is so important in life. He talked about Larry Ellis and all the guys in the late 60s who grew up during the computer, just when laptops were getting important in the computer generation. In my case, it's important because I walked into Wall Street in the 80s just as it was freaking exploding. Yeah. And I was a junior guy, knew nothing. I kept my ears open. I had nose to the grindstone. I listened to what was going on around me on the bond floor. And I was able to pick up all the crumbs these guys left behind because the pie was so friggin' big, you can make a good living on the crumbs. And from there, I just learned my way right through it. And by the 90s and 2000s, because of timing, quite honestly, timing means everything. I don't care what anybody says, and I mean, even now in this world of AI, I feel bad for the kids coming out of college. I think it's a terrible time to be coming out of college right now.
So that's another show. Wait, Ron.
That's another show, right? I'm sorry. So
I was going to say, tell everybody where they can connect with you and learn more about you if they can get to be that next 1 or 2 slots, or just reach out to maybe you work with somebody else in your firm.
No, I've got more than 1 or 2 slots open, but I'm just pointing out that I'm not going to grow my business to 100 clients.
Yeah. Tell everybody how they can connect with you, Ron.
All right. So you can either look at through our website at Magnus Financial, Magnus Financial.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Ron Deutsch, which RON, last name DEUTSCH. My email is ron.deutsch, DEUTSCH, at Magnus, Magnus Financial.com. And
Wonderful.
if you want to give me a phone call, my cell phone number is available to everybody, 914-384-4802. And I'm on speed dial 24/7 because I get calls at all sorts of times of the night from my clients.
Wonderful.
I'll leave
Thank
you
you
with
so much
this.
for being on.
Yeah, this was great. Your accessibility, your customization, the way you curate, the way you follow up with your clients. I think it's a master's class and so important in today's world. It's what it's all about. You know, we can all offer great something. It becomes a commodity if we're not accessible, there for our clients, and take that front seat approach. So I appreciate it, Ron. Thanks for everything. Great connecting with you.
Thank you.
You can reach Ron at Magnus Financial. You can reach Jeff at title-connect.com. You can reach me at johndwoskin.com. Have an awesome day, everybody. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.